women who are ovulating prefer men with thicker jaws. So for example, if you show women pictures of the same men across their menstrual cycle and all you do is widen the jaw, the narrow-jawed guy is more preferable when there's less probability of conception, and the wider-jawed guy is more desirable when the probability of ovulation is high. And jaw dimensions are associated, at least to some degree, with aggression. Why would that be? And gender differences, these sorts of gender differences, with the male being larger and more aggressive than the female, are not characteristic of all mammals, although they're characteristic of many of them. Back to these: construction, forestry, mining, utilities. Well, you can kind of see, maybe, that these are jobs, you can tell me if you disagree, but these seem to me to be jobs that might require more physical strength. That would certainly be the case in forestry and mining and construction, and likely in utility work too. So, and then they're also thing-like jobs, right? So these aren't, you know, there's not a lot of value on fostering close human relationships in these sorts of occupations, you know. So here's some interesting things. 10 most male-dominated occupations in the US. So I guess one of the things that you might ask yourself is, would you be interested in a job like this? So hypothetically, men are more interested in jobs like this than women. Brick mason, block masons, stone masons, so, you know, carving up stone. Cement masons, electrical power line installers and repairers. That's a tough job, eh? It'd be very hard to do that, like during the ice storm. That'd be a hard job. Carpet, floor, and tile installers, heating, air conditioning, refrigeration mechanics, structure, iron, and rebar workers, bus and truck mechanics and diesel engine specialists, miscellaneous vehicle and mobile equipment mechanics, tool and die makers, and roofers. So, and those are overwhelmingly male, right? If you look on the right-hand column there, there isn't even 1% of the total number of women in those occupations isn't even 1%. You know, it's funny, you don't hear a lot of like gender affirmative action calls for structure, iron, and rebar worker gender equality. So, well, I think that's interesting, you know. If it's merely a matter of gender inequality, then why does it differ? What difference does it make what the category of employment is? That sort of argument shouldn't be reserved for only the upper echelons and the most desirable jobs. You know, otherwise, that's not a coherent argument. It either applies across the spectrum of jobs or it's incoherent. Those are the alternatives. So here's the 10 most female-dominated occupations in the US. It's still secretaries and administrative assistants. Now, you know, that was the most common female job in the 1950s, and it is still overwhelmingly the most common female job. So that's quite interesting, and although it's incredibly dominated by women. So, you know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's like, it's not that easy to tell. Childcare workers, well, that doesn't really come as much of a surprise, but it is notable. And one of the things you see in the Scandinavian countries, for example, it's pretty much related to this, is that there's a 20-to-1 difference men versus women in engineering, and there's a 20-to-1 women versus men difference in nursing. So, and the Scandinavian governments every now and then go through a fit of enthusiasm about attracting more women into engineering, and so they, you know, crank up their social engineering and their information about how desirable a profession that is, and then the proportion of women who go into engineering rises slightly, not very much, and then as soon as they stop, you know, pushing it hard, it just drops right back down to 5%. Teacher assistants, registered nurses, bookkeeping, accounting and auditing clerks, maid and housekeeping cleaners, nursing, psychiatric and home health aides, personal and home care aides, and general office clerks. So that's where the bulk of women are in the that's where the bulk of the female-dominated occupations are. People fall in love with their babies to a staggering degree, and the typical response of new parents is, well, I never knew it would be like this, because even if you're not interested in someone else's baby, you tend to be unbelievably interested in your own baby. And that's a good thing, because they're a lot of trouble. And so there's a system, a maternal system primarily, a care system. It's a system that's shared by men, because men are also very maternal for mammals. And so I believe that's on the one end of the agreeableness spectrum. It's like the maternal care system is what's driving empathy and sympathy and all of those things. And you know, I think actually that it was the expansion of the maternal care system to include men that actually resulted in human beings' capability to pair bond.